Okay, continuing John Dewey's moral principles in education. We're up to the moral training for methods of instruction. So that's chapter 3. The principle of the social character of the school, so character of the school, as a basic factor in the moral education given may be also applied to the question of the method of instruction. Not in their details, but in their general spirit. So what is the general spirit of instruction? Now, here's where current schools have gone off the rails, right? Because they don't give a general spirit for methods of instruction to teachers. They give scripts. They give required tests. We got the standardized test movement, which starts with No Child Left Behind. Bush and Kennedy families both made a lot of money on that, and continued with Common Core, which reduced an idea of Common Core, which is generally a good idea, to something that's standards. And when you have standards, standards have one purpose, and that's to have standardized tests. And standardized tests have one purpose, that's to rank order kids and schools and teachers, and those rank orders don't tell us anything about the quality of instruction. They tell us a lot about which neighborhoods are poor, where rural kids are, because they tend to be more poor, right? Where rich urbanites living in the suburbs are, which suburbs are failing, which are exurbs, right? Tell us a lot of stuff you can find out a lot easier without abusing children with hours and hours of high stakes testing and then blaming the schools and the kids for their failure, for the failure of society to provide jobs for people of all education levels. Because that's what it comes down to. But a Common Core, the basic idea of it is good, right? You know, you want to have some common things across the country people understand, right? Everybody's read Hamlet, so you can make a reference to Hamlet in a political speech, in a speech in a, I don't know if you're giving a speech at your local community meeting, right? If everybody's read Hamlet, you know, you can make a reference to it and everybody understands it. So that's the basic idea of Common Core. The problem is it became standards, and standards have one purpose, and that's testing. And testing, invented in the 1920s, the multiple choice test, the multiple guess test. Everybody knows it's terrible. Useful for the Army Navy, because that's what it was invented for in the 1920s. But before that, all education. So all those great people who we would put into a Common Core were educated without ever taking a standardized test, without ever filling out a bubble sheet for the government. Continuing on. And this is 1909, so he's before that whole movement, right? He's before even the Army Navy test. It doesn't exist yet. He can't talk about a bubble test, about a multiple guess test. Continue on with Dewey. The emphasis, oh yeah, by the way, we're on page 33, if you're following along with your copy. Again, if I'll get to it, right, within the next day or two, I'll link in my doogly-doo the link to this book. If you buy it through my link, that helps me out. Obviously, helps me continue to do this work in a sustainable way. The emphasis then falls upon construction and giving out, rather than upon absorption and mere learning. So he wants a spirit of instruction that is construction. We'll put a star by that and write the word constructivist, because this is what educators call Deweyan education today. Other people too, like Lev Vygotsky, Maria Montessori, they generally call them constructivists. Either way, discovery learning comes on the foothills of this stuff, right? It's a first expression of constructivist learning. We fail to recognize how essentially individualistic the later methods are. So when you're absorbing, information that's individuals. You individually do it or not. And you get grades, A, B, C, D, right? And how unconsciously, yet certainly and effectively, they react to the child's way of judging and acting. Not sure what that means. They might guide the way the child judges and acts. But how do they react? If you have the later method, which is absorption and mirror learning. Mirror learning. How does absorption and mirror learning as a process react? I don't know. Dewey has these sentences and sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes you get a sense of them after reading them a bunch of times. Some philosophers are this way. He's a little bit artistic, I guess, in his writing, but purposefully so, I think. He's trying to get at something that did not exist before he was writing, right? Imagine 40 children. Okay, so we have a parable maybe, right? An example. Imagine 40 children all engaged in reading the same books. So that's Common Core, right? Except for it's just 40, so it's only one place. Common Core would be everybody in the whole country reading the same books. But not all the books, right? The Common Core is the idea that there's a core, and then everybody does something different beyond that. It's how universities work. Everybody takes Composition 105, Composition 111, right? Everybody takes Math 105 and Math 111. And then you have choices, right? Electives that are not common. But then there's another common at the level of the profession, right? Every music teacher takes psych of music, music education, educational philosophy, instrumental methods, choral methods, general music methods, right? A Common Core. But then after that, maybe you take something else that seems interesting, right? Maybe there's like a advanced conducting class that you take if that's what you're interested in at the time. Okay, so imagine 40 children all engaged in reading the same books and in preparing and reciting the same lessons day after day. So recitation, reading aloud, is something that was definitely done a lot back in Dewey's time. Dewey came into a system that was recitation heavy. People would read Plato out loud. Kids would read their grammar books out loud. Kids would read the Organon out loud. And there is something to that, right? When we do something, there's a reason I have this YouTube channel and I work through these philosophical ideas and I'm actually getting something out of it. I'm thinking more and more about these things by speaking them. I recommend everybody who wants to be an everyday philosopher in whatever field, do this same thing. Pull out some books, start with some short ones that you know are important, and start reading them and talking about them on YouTube. Even if nobody ever watches it, an imagined conversation is something, right? Suppose this process constitutes by far the larger part of that work. Okay, so here's what we're talking about, right? So Dewey was not necessarily calling for the removal of recitation as a method, but not having it be larger than discovery learning, than constructionism, right? And that they are continually judged from the standpoint of what they're able to take in a study hour and reproduce in a recitation hour. Interesting model. So you have an hour of study, so everybody sits quietly and study, and then an hour of recitation where you're reading aloud or maybe going from memory, how much you can memorize of it. Because memory is an important part too, right? I'm working this year on memorizing some scripture. Haven't got nearly as much as I wanted to, but right now I'm working on Psalm 12, Dewey Rheims, right? How long, O Lord, wilt thou forget me into the end? How long dost thou turn away thy face from me? Right? And about memorizing, it's a workout for the brain. It's like doing push-ups, right? You don't do push-ups because you can do push-ups. You do it because there's a systemic value to that exercise if you do them. Saying that, I don't really do push-ups, but you know what I mean. I run, I cycle, I lift weights. Push-ups would be a good thing to do, but you can't add too much. It gets imbalanced if you focus more on your body than your mind and your spirit. So always think about that mind, body, spirit triangle. You want to be working on all three things. I've been imbalanced in the past. You believe we're already 10 minutes in this? I haven't even got through a page. This is how I learn, right? It's challenging. I would be, let's see, what did I have? They gave me dyslexia when I was young and a stutter. Those were the two things I got helped for. And they were really, really good stuff, right? But that's what I got helped for. They probably would give me ADHD today. Hopefully not the medicines, though, because I don't think I do well with medicines. There is next to no opportunity for any social division of labor. Okay, so Dewey wants division of labor. So capitalism, the model of manufacturing, division of labor, to be intrinsic to the schoolwork. Kids need to have this chance for the social division of labor because they're going to go to jobs where that division of labor is a reality. If you're at a university, you're not the Plato expert if you're the music expert. And you're not expert in Schiller's aesthetics if you're the Plato expert. Right? Division of labor narrows us. But I can see how, like, in 1910, you would think this was a pretty good idea, maybe. There is no opportunity for each child to work out something specifically his own, to find what they're good at, right? Which he may contribute to the common stock. I don't like that word stock. Makes me think of those racist 1909 texts that Dewey obviously was reading, like Margaret Sanger, and what was her thing about getting all African Americans to commit abortion or onto birth control? Was that it? She wanted especially African Americans to get it because they were really afraid African American population was going to outpace white population at the time. And that was Margaret Sanger's big contribution. And then, of course, that organization she founded was turned around or whatever it is today. I'm not really sure. But anyway, stock. While he, in turn, participates in the production of others. All are set to do exactly the same work and turn out the same products. The social spirit is not cultivated. So if everybody's doing the same, common is not equal to social spirit. So if everybody's doing the same thing. So here's a question, right? Do you have anything that you did in school that you and your friends all had to do and complain about together, and it becomes something that you have pizza and go see a movie and you guys talk about, like, oh, remember Mr. Smith and having to write a poem in the style of Tennyson? Oh yeah, that was terrible, wasn't it? Right? That kind of does cultivate a social spirit, having that sameness. In contrast, if you're like, oh no, in my class we didn't try to do that. We tried to model one after Edgar Allan Poe. Was it similar? Oh no, it wasn't. We don't have anything to talk about. Okay, let's just watch this movie. In fact, insofar as purely individualistic method gets in its work, it atrophies for lack of use. I think both methods are individualistic, right? So they're calling this the individualistic method because everybody's doing the same thing, but they're all doing the same thing at the same time. And he's calling the other the social, even though everybody's doing different things, and they're all doing different things at the same time. I don't know. Do you really have a lot to a social spirit built in with your, let's say, your accountant, if you're not an accountant, right? When you sit with your accountant and you're not talking about accounting, Do you have a lot of social spirit with them naturally, cultivated, because they specialized and did the accounting parts while you did the blah 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 parts, the music parts, whatever? One reason why reading aloud in school is poor is that the real motive for the use of language, the desire to communicate and to learn, is not utilized. Okay, so I'm reading aloud here. Am I not utilizing my desire to communicate? So I think what Dewey misses, is there a way it can be done? Is there a way recitation can be utilized that instead increases that desire to communicate and a desire to learn? The child knows perfectly well that the teacher and all his fellow pupils have exactly the same facts and ideas before them that he has. If that were the case, right, there wouldn't have been any development, right? Descartes would have been the exact same as Plato, no difference at all, right? Hume would have been the exact same as Epicurus, right? There wouldn't have been any development at all because they had the exact same facts in the education system that both of them got. Okay, he is not giving them anything at all. So I think this is idealistic, but I think in the premises, are his premises right? Are Dewey's premises right? And they might be. I like discovery learning for a part of the class. But I think that if we go to completely discovery learning, we don't offer anything, right? Like Plato saying everybody has inside them every bit of knowledge of math. And they don't actually have to be taught it. You just ask them the right question, and the Pythagorean theorem is there. Yeah, I don't know that I buy that. Do you buy it? I'm a little incredulous towards that idealism that Dewey and Plato both had around education. There's a lot kids have inside them, but they got it from somewhere. And it may be questioned whether the moral lack is not as great as the intellectual. The child is born with a natural desire to give out. I'd call that to express. And music and arts are very important to that. The child is born with a natural desire to give out, to do, to serve. Yeah, I don't know why you added serve there, right? To serve. But we do, right? When we make music, we make it with other people. Let's say you're improvising in a jazz group, right? You throw things into your improvisation that responds to another person, but you also offer them things that they can respond to. So there is a type of service there. When this tendency is not used, when conditions are such that other motives are substituted, the accumulation and influence of working against the social spirit is much larger than we have any idea of, especially when the burden of work, week after week, year after year, falls upon this side. The tedium, I'm going to call it, of work. Yeah, so falls upon the side. Now there's where I agree with Dewey strongly. When the tedium of work, if you get into the habit of recitation every day, as schools did back then, right? It's too much. You have to have also the giving out, the artistic expression. Schools need to have both. They have to have balance. So there are extents to which Dewey is 100% right. John Dewey, I don't think anybody could disagree with that. That kids need to both give out to create as well. Right? You go back to that Marxian idea of what the human being is, a creative being who creates things with natural material. Right? Even if you don't get to his conclusion, that species being of human seems right. We like to create. Have a blessed day.